Good morning, and welcome to our 2026 series of WTH webinar training sessions. We're glad to see so many of you joining us for our second series. My name is Leslie, and I will be your moderator. We invite you to navigate to our website, WTHGIS.com, and click on the banner, which will take you to our webinar menu page, where you can explore the topics we are to cover today and on future dates. We're doing something a little different with our first 3 sessions this time, as we plan on breaking down our topics into 3 one-hour mini sessions. Within each hour, we will be presenting for 40 minutes, reviewing any questions for 10 minutes, and then ending with a 10-minute break. The topic for our second webinar in this series is Think GIS Editor Training, which we will break down to cover editing review and field management in the first hour, linking documents to layers in the second hour, and lastly, feature forms and best editing practices. If there is something that isn't making sense or you would like information on, we invite you to post a question in our Q&A tab that you can access in the Teams toolbar above. From there, you can submit a question in the side discussion bar. We will also be opening up the mics in the 10-minute Q&A of each hour to provide you the opportunity to ask questions in person if preferred. After we are done here today, you will receive an email that will have 2 things. First is a survey link where we ask that you provide feedback on how we did here today. On that survey will also be a section where you can request more in-depth training on some features we may not have time to cover in today's session. If you would like more information, please leave a brief description of what you would like to review so we can have the appropriate team member reach out to you. The second thing to watch for in that email will be a link to a recording of today's session. We've had some users unable to access that link in the past, so we want to be sure that you know that link will also be available on our website webinar registration page to access at any time, bookmark for review at your own pace, or use as a tool when training new employees. Now I'll turn the session over to Corey. Corey is the GIS consultant and customer service tech with over 8 years of experience specializing in land information and public safety work. Go ahead, Corey.
Good morning, everyone. In this thing, pull up my map. We are going to start with some editing review. I'd like to start with talking about how to lock your layers for editing. It's kind of the first step to anything you do. So we're going to go up here to Tools and Show Map Editing Tools. So this will show you your tools that you can use to do editing. And then whenever we click that, it will also pop up this Lock Layers for Editing. Whenever we are working on something, I highly suggest you do not hit this Select All here at the top. Normally, whenever you're editing, I like to have 1 or 2 layers locked, not multiple layers whenever you're doing something. That's an easy way to manipulate data that you don't realize you're moving. You move a point or a line, you may be grabbing an area or some other data at the same time and moving it. So it's easy to accidentally move something or change something, delete something if you have that select all. So we normally like to just have one thing locked. For now, I'm going to go ahead and lock my community gardens and my daycare layer. I'm going to be using that here in a little bit. So I'll hit OK. So there are other ways to lock your layers for editing. You can go to the layer settings up here. And then if we expand out like the base map here, you'll see this edit lock column. So if you want to lock a layer, like we can lock our edit addressing, you just click the little lock, edit, just turn it back off again. So that's how I normally lock and unlock my layers. Just because I'm moving in and out of different layers, I'll just pop up the layer settings, lock them on and off. The other thing you want to watch for is this edit select column. Sometimes it's easy to accidentally click that when you're clicking this button, and that makes it so you can't click on something on the map. So I'm going to turn off the edit select on the addresses to show you how. You can see I'm trying to click on these addresses and they will not select. It's just wanting to select those parcels. So if we turn the select back on, now we can click on the addresses. So that's a pretty common thing to accidentally click that edit select. So just kind of something to watch out for. And then another way you can lock layers, if you're in the index and already working on something in here, and you want to lock a layer because you're wanting to move things from one layer to another, rather than having to go to the tools, lock layers, or the layer settings, you can just right click lock layers for editing here, and it pulls up that same menu we had before. So you just click on any of these layers on the left, lock layers for editing, and that pops up. So that's kind of the three main ways to lock layers. There are some tools that will automatically lock the layers, like whenever you export a shapefile or whenever you're doing address editing, the address tool will automatically lock your address layer for you whenever you do that. So you don't have to lock it before, but I normally do just for convenience on whenever I'm editing. So the first thing I want to review in editing review is going to be editing some like existing data. So you already have a point. I don't know if I'm not going to do very much placing or drawing lines or placing points. I'm going to mostly go over here, just working on your existing data. So if we go down here to this 219 East Rhonda, and we wanted to change that to a different number, let's say we wanted to make that 217, you can just edit that up. You know what? I don't have that layer locked, do I? Let's go up here and lock our layer. So now if we double click, so we want to change that 219 to 217. You'll see that I can hit that, hit OK, and hit redraw, and that'll change. That's a question I have a lot of times, is someone will have an address, maybe it's an old address that's placed and they want to change it to a new number because they're reusing that address point. That's an easy way to adjust that. The other thing that you can do from this menu whenever you open up the feature form is this wrench has a lot of different tools here. So we're not going to go over all of these today, but we are going to go through some of these later. I just wanted to point out the little wrench. The big one that I use a lot is the delete. So this is a way to delete a feature off the map. Instead of using the delete tool up here, whenever you use that tool, you get rid of the feature that's on the map right here, but you don't get rid of it out of the index. So that address layer, that address point would still be listed here in the index. So what we want to do is use the wrench, and whenever we delete this feature, make sure you want to delete this feature. Yes. And that will actually get rid of that feature completely off of the map, out of the index and off the map. And that's a good way to delete things. Whenever you use the delete tool, you're going to have things in the index that are still lingering. They're not going to probably cause any problems for most of the users to have that data, except it can still show up if they do a search in the index, and then they'll wonder why that address point doesn't exist. If they try to locate it, it won't locate it because the geometry has been deleted. So I'm going to do a redraw here. So another thing you can do with our little wrench is you can copy or move a feature to another layer. So if you look over here, our ABC daycare is highlighted in green, and green is the layer for my community gardens. You can see our Town of Dexter Green Thumbs and our Town of Dexter Garden Guild. We have two little community gardens here, and then somehow this daycare got put on that layer. So if we open that up, you'll see this window here. I'll talk about it real quick. If you click on something, and like this is two areas, the parcel layer and the daycare layer, you'll see that we have the choice to choose which we want to open. So I just double clicked inside the area here. The map is saying, hey, there's two areas there. Which one do you want to open? So I'm going to choose our, you can see it says community garden and ABC daycare. So we can know that that is probably in the wrong layer. So we're going to use our little wrench. We're going to move this feature to another layer. And then we're going to choose our daycare layer. We'll click OK. And then do a redraw. Now that turns yellow. So that's a way if you end up with, I was originally going to do an example with like meters. If you were adding meters and you're like, oh, there's a valve right here, you can move that valve back over to the meters, or the meters back to the valve if you have the wrong feature. And that's where we're going to be talking next, not next section, but in a little bit about the current layer and current feature. And that's where you can kind of make sure you don't make those mistakes in the future. So the other thing you can do to edit existing data is you can use the index. So I'm going to go to the index here. And then I'm going to lock our address ranges. So I'm going to do an unselect all to get rid of all the things I have selected and just select our address ranges. That's kind of what I consider best practices. Only have one layer locked. That prevents you from accidentally messing with data that you don't realize you're moving or deleting. So we're going to do that. And then so change has been layered. Oh, I'd made some changes to that daycare layer. I hadn't hit save yet. So the map's warning me. So I'm going to hit yes to save. And that's probably for the community garden layer and the address layer because I deleted one. So that's where the map tries to save you from losing data. I should have hit file save. That's always a good practice whenever you're editing. But so now we're on our address range, and you can see here I have 150 south instead of 150 and then just a W or an S. So there's a couple ways you can edit things in here. You can, did I get that locked? Yeah, address ranges are locked. So you can edit text right in the index here. So let's do a search. I'm going to just search for those 150 souths. So there's a couple ways you can edit this. There's this little button down here, edit text. You can click that, type, go right into here, and just clear out what we don't want. Now, there is a warning here. There's no undo for any editing that you do inside the index like this. So if you do a mass change, that I'm going to show you next, or you use the little edit text button, and once you've changed it, it's changed. So just be careful using these tools. Make sure that's why I like to use the search to only have the points that I need to do. One thing interesting in the index, you can do a select like multiple holding shift. Yeah. So you can select multiple, you can select a couple, or you can right click and hit select all, or you can do a control A. There we go. I was hitting the wrong button on my keyboard. There's a function button. But if you hold control, you can select just two of them. So if I didn't want to do that 150 south for some reason, I can select those, or I can go ahead and select all three. And then I'm going to do a set field value for selected features. So this will allow me to just type in what I want to mass change these all at once. So 150 south and OK. And that changes all of those. One thing to know, if you have a pick list set up, you can actually use that in the drop down there to be able to make sure your data's good. We're going to talk about pick lists later, whenever we're talking about some of the feature details, so we can go over that a little bit. But that is something nice, is that if you do have a pick list set up, it'll help you be able to pick the exact way you have it written. You'll be able to see the other examples. So let's hit close there. So there is this edit text checkbox down here, and you can edit right from the address ranges in the normal index. I don't like that as much. I prefer to use the search first to get me drilled down, because there could be one of these 150 souths hiding down here, depending on how this is sorted. So if this was sorted by direction, you'll see that those 150 souths are going to be hiding different places possibly. So we want to use I like to use the search to search for those 150 with the misspelling. One thing with the search, I'll point out, I'm sure we've showed this before, but if you hit this drop down, you can see all of the different unique IDs. So if you wanted to find a particular one, you can just scroll up and down here and find that. So like you can see here, there's actually an Anita without Anita Street. So we can hit search, and we can say, oh, there's an Anita without Anita Street. We can hit edit text. Turn the edit text off, which you do have to turn that off whenever you're done. That is a quick way to be able to edit something. You already have existing data and you're just wanting to make a change. And you can edit any of these fields. But you could choose this left to right, your range data, community, whatever you needed to change. So let's close that. Let's see what is next. Oh, one thing you can do from the index. So let's say we were wanting to look at one of these that had a spelling error, like maybe this Anita Street. You can hit view record. That'll pull up the form and you can actually type in here. So like, let's say that was already just Anita. We can just type it there. So that allows you to be able to see the form when you're editing it rather than using the edit text. So I find that actually more convenient sometimes. That way I can double check all the other fields are filled in the way they should be. Then there's also, you can do like locate alls or you can do locate. I use the locate a lot. So I want to look at that one oddball maybe that wasn't spelled out properly. And I'm wanting to know, is there a duplicate there? Is there a reason why there was an error? That's a nice thing is you can zoom in, take a look at something and try to figure out why it had a problem that it did. Those, let me scroll my notes here. So the next thing I want to talk about is the current layer, current feature. So this is something that you can change which layer you're working on. So let me lock my water layers. I'm going to turn on my water meters and water valves, and I'm going to turn off my address ranges. And again, the map, because I hadn't hit file save, I'm being a bad example here. It's going to ask if I want to save. I'm going to say yes. So we have our meters and valves, and you'll see up here at our current layer, if we select meters, and then I hit new feature, I'm going to create a new feature here. So I'm just going to put in some data, comment, house, okay. And then I place a point, and I'm going to say that this meter is over here. I'm going to place it. So if I think, oh, I need to put a valve right here on this line, if I hit new feature right now, I'm going to create another water meter. So I have to select here, go water valves, and then new feature. We'll give it an ID, and okay. And then we can place our point, and we can place it. So this is something I'm going to talk about more later, but this is something that you may see. I left it in here. I forgot it was going to pop up like this, but I had left the settings turned on. The topology layer will actually automatically split your line whenever you place. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. That's actually like the next little piece here. But what this will do is it will, whenever you place this, it'll split that into two pieces. And it's basically just warning me, hey, this is going to be happening. Is this okay? We're going to go ahead and hit yes. So that's something, a pop-up you may see once in a while. It's a lot like those pop-ups where the save. Most of the time you're going to want to hit yes, but it's a good idea to read and see what it says to make sure you're not manipulating some data whenever when you're doing something. Anytime you have a pop-up like that, you don't know what it means, or you have a question, feel free to call us. A lot of times it's a quick, easy call we can do over the phone. We don't always have to remote in for something like that, and we can talk you through, what your process is and say, yep, that's going to be a yes on that, and then it won't pop up again. So I'll show you here. I'm going to make another valve, and we'll place a point. We'll put it down here, and you'll see it doesn't pop up this time. And that's basically the tool is just not warning me this time about changing that line. So it's already locked the layer for editing, and you'll see here that our water lines are locked. So that's another way that the map will automatically lock layers for you to basically be able to edit that data for you. So that's something you want to watch out, because if I wanted to move this valve right now, we use the move tool. If I move this valve, it's also going to move my line. So that's something about whenever you are dealing with your data, if you have two things locked and you're only wanting to manipulate the valves, right now it's going to be moving that line also. So I'm going to do an undo so we get that back where it was. Let me see. So to do different things, you can do this current feature, and the current feature lets you see the same, like you can see all the different features in here. And like, let's say we deleted this 111 feature off of the map with the delete tool, it would still show up here and it would allow us to replace it. So let me do that real quick. So we're going to delete, I think I'll delete this one down here I created. Yes. So we'll see that that one is gone. And that was that 567. So if we come back up here, you'll see it's still in this list. We can click it, grab our point, and I don't know if there's a snap there. I'll snap it there. So now there's our new valve placed. So that's what this current feature. The other use of that, let me lock. I forgot to hit save again. I think that's going to be a normal thing for today. Community gardens, I'm going to lock that one. And let's say the Town of Dexter Green Thumbs is going to expand into this empty lot right here. Instead of dragging these lines and doing that area and going across this alley, which they maybe don't actually have access to, we are going to come up here, pick our current feature, and you'll see that this is something I wanted to point out. The top one will highlight blue, the bottom one doesn't, but it gets you this black box. So if we click the top one and we hit OK, it'll change to the Garden Guild. If we click the bottom one, it doesn't highlight blue, but it does select it. It'll change to the Green Thumbs. So that's kind of a quirk just for you to know for the visual, is that it doesn't select that bottom one. The other ones will select blue, and then that bottom one, if you have it selected, it'll just have that black kind of dark box, just to kind of help you see what you're selecting. So now we've got this selected, and we're going to just use the copy tool to copy this parcel area. And yes. And what this does for us is now the garden, not the Garden Guild, the Green Thumbs, whenever we select on that area, you'll see it highlights both. So that's the same feature, but drawn in two areas. So if you were wanting to do this, like let's say this club had 10 gardens spread across the whole town, whenever you wanted to do a locate all of the Garden Guild or the Green Thumbs, whenever you do a locate, you'll see it would highlight them in orange. So you could see them all highlighted. And the nice thing is that's a nice visual, like so that whenever you click on one, you can see the other ones highlighted around. For printing and other things, sometimes it makes sense for these to be split apart. But most of the time, it seems like most users prefer it so that whenever they click on one, they can see all the other ones. Kind of keeps everything tied together. That way, you're only managing one feature that way. There's certain things that you don't want to do that way, but this is one way you can make it so then these are tied together. So let's say the Garden Guild is going to expand to this northern area. They're going to encroach in on the Green Thumbs. We go to the Garden Guild, and then we can use the copy tool again. So now we do a redraw. So we can see these areas are green right next to each other. It's hard to tell which one is which. So if we click on our community garden layer for over here, so that's the Garden Guild, and you can see it highlights those two, but doesn't highlight these two. So that's one thing you can do with the current feature. If you're wanting to change the current feature quickly, though, you can actually use any of the drawing tools to select it. So let's say we were going to draw a freehand area, and then we can middle click, which is the scroll wheel, on the other one of the other areas. So like this is going to choose the Green Thumbs, or if I middle click inside of this area, you'll see it changes to the Garden Guild. So I'm going to middle click here, and then I'm just going to go draw like in this backyard, just to show the example. So now if we click on that area, you'll see those three highlight. So if I go grab my tool again, I middle click up here. So that's the Garden Guild. I'm just going to go down here. I'll do a redraw. And then if I click here, you'll see that those areas highlight. So that's a quick way to be able to jump back and forth between your two areas. I use it a lot whenever I'm editing like an ESN layer where you maybe have the city and the county, and it's like it ebbs and flows in and out of the different parcels. And sometimes you need to like add another parcel to the ESN. That allows you to be able to click on the existing area, draw it in, then click on the other area and draw that piece in. Kind of allows you just to jump back and forth without having to use the interface up here. Now I'm going to go ahead and lock my valves again. Actually, we'll do meters. I'll show you in the meters, you can actually do a search inside of here. So this search bar right here, the search for layer and search, that's actually this left side searching for your actual individual. You want to use this big search button up here. So we're going to do, and I'm going to do like in the address, I'm going to say Jason Street. So I want to see all the ones from Jason Street. So here's all the Jason Street ones that are like different features that already exist. And then I can click on that one and you'll see it actually highlights on the map. So if I move my search thing over here, you can see that one highlights and that one highlights. If one of these was deleted, it'll actually have a little exclamation point. So let me delete one. Delete. And redraw. And I think I need to do a file save. Let me relock it just to make sure. My little exclamation point isn't showing it. Maybe it just shows up in the index. Forget how that shows up. Anyway, so this one is missing now. We want to find that one. We can go to our water meters, go to our search. If we had a lot of, if we had a lot more features, I've kept my features pretty small here. We can do our Jason Street. And then we're going to say that was 539. So we're going to click OK and OK. So it changes to that one. And we can place our point. So the current feature, not something I use a lot to change back and forth between current features. That's mostly to fix a missing item. So something got deleted off the map. It's already existed. Everything's already typed in. Go find it in the current feature and place it. I also use it whenever I'm switching back and forth between like two areas, like an ESN layer, drawing in something. Also, the same thing with these garden guilds. If they were like had a big plot and you were trying to draw out 4 or 5 different groups and it was like alternating or something, you could use that current feature to switch back and forth to be able to draw those in. Mostly just wanted to point out the what that did and show what it was. I've had people ask before, so I just thought it'd be something good to talk about. So next I want to talk about those topology rules. So that was with this line automatically splitting. Like whenever we drew this valve in down here, we click on this line, you'll see that line highlights, but it stops at the valve. And then this line highlights, stops at the valve, and stops at the T here. So the way that's set up in our layer settings here, you'll see on our water lines, hydrants, meters, and valves that has these topos highlighted. So let's click on our water lines. And this is one of those things that there are certain things in the settings here that the layer has to be locked to be able to change it. So we're going to go ahead and hit yes. It'll automatically lock that for us. And then here's our topology rules. So the big thing is the checking the auto split. That's kind of what the tool, in my opinion, is the most powerful part of it, is allows you to be able to place a point, automatically splits at the line. And then the group, what that does is if you have gas lines, I'll show you here, there's lots of choices for these. So you can have grass, hydrology, electrical, railroads, roads, all these different things. You can have your gas marked as gas, your electrical marked as electrical. So if you accidentally place a point on the electrical line, it won't automatically split on that electrical. It only manipulates things in its group. So that's why everything is in water here. I'm going to go ahead and lock these other edits. So you can see as I click down through these. So this is the hydrant. It's locked for water. It's got the auto split in water. And the third one in water. So this is just something you can set up whenever you are creating a new layer. A lot of times whenever we help you guys set up layers, if you're working on utilities like this, we'll have this set up for you automatically. But this is something you can add to your layers if you're doing a new layer to track something, and that can help you get some of this kind of automatic features to happen. So the next, scroll here. Leslie said we have 2 questions. Let's go ahead and do that before we move on to our field management. I don't know if you want to read them out or text them to me, Leslie, either way.
I'm here. I know one of the things we discussed early on about the selectability of layers. Something we get calls on often are when users go clicking around the map, sometimes they'll get squares with slashes through them. Can you explain what that is and how to manage that?
So a lot of times that's going to be your aerial photography. I don't know if I can get one to select here easily. I can probably just choose one and make it zoom to it. So you're talking about like that?
That's it.
That is the aerial photography being selectable. So like if you're clicking around, let me do a redraw here. I'll see my borders. Like let's say you clicked right here and there's a parcel. I've stripped out a bunch of parcels just to make the map simpler. But there's a parcel over here you want to click on, you try to click on it, and you end up with this giant box with a slash. That's just the aerial photography you're selecting. If you come up here and you turn off that select, and that's where aerial photography is the main one, you'll have that off. You'll see I have it off on my zip codes also. Even though I have the layer off, sometimes I'll turn a zip code layer on just so I can see that border, but I don't maybe want to select it because it's maybe right on a road center line and I'm trying to click on the road center line. So that's another one. Sometimes your townships or other big boundary layers, you can have those turned off just to keep you from accidentally clicking them. But yeah, aerial photography is the common one that you'll see. And now if we do a redraw, you can see I can't click anything. Oop, didn't mean to zoom. Can't click anything in here. So that's what that is.
Perfect. Another question we had brought to our attention is this particular user says every time the county updates the address layer, all your changes disappear. Can you discuss the importance of layer ownership and both for local and network setups?
Yeah, so layer ownership, that is something that's set up in sync and it's normally managed on our side. If it's on a network, there may be a server that's syncing, so it depends on who has access to that. One thing to talk about, there is the ability to add a password to your layers. So if you're on a network and you are the only one that should be making changes and you have someone else accidentally or doing the select all whenever they lock layers, you can set a password to keep people from manipulating it. The big thing to know is you need to know what layers you are the owner of. That can be checked whenever you do a sync and there's an upload page. That's kind of the quickest way. The other way is to give us a call and say, hey, I did an edit on the address layer and it's gone. We can check and say, oh, you're on your laptop. You need to do that on your desktop or something like that. I know that's a common confusion is that the only one computer or one registration on the map can own a layer. So it's important to know what layers that you own and what can be edited because let's say like the zip codes would be a good example. There's a good chance that no one in the county owns that. It may be something that WTH imported for you from the state and we own. You go in and say, hey, I want to add a little note to the zip codes to say that, this town, the post office for this zip code is in this other town type of thing. Well, then you go to sync and it deletes all that for you because it's saying, hey, the file on our server is the definitive source and you've changed it and our program does not care. It's just like going to override it. Answer your question, Leslie?
Yes. And another thing that was brought to my attention is the importance of layer ownership through registration numbers. Each map has its own registration number. So, we try not to have duplicates, and it's important to know which registration, like Corey discussed, you may have one map on your laptop, one on your desktop. It's important to know which has the ability to do what. That was it. If you want to resume.
Okay, so the next thing I wanted to touch on, and this is good because I didn't expect to spend a lot of time on these, is just some of the different fields that you can add to things. So let's look at our water meters. So to get to this extra more, you can click, we should make this a little wider. There's a little more column right here. But to get to that quicker, or the way I do it all the time, is I just right click. So if you right click on any of your layers, you're going to get to the more section of that layer. And then we're going to go to layer format. That was basically just asking, do I want to save? Again, I forgot to save. But there's a lot of different types of fields you can add. So I'm going to hit an add, and I'm going to do a let long field. And to choose that, you're going to go to field type. You're going to come down here to calculated coordinates. And then there's a couple choices even inside of here. You can do decimal degrees, decimal minutes, degrees, minutes, seconds, the native coordinates. So that is going to be your northing easting if you're on a state plane map. And then you can do latitude and longitude separated out into two different pieces. I normally just do a single one if I'm just wanting to like have that data, or I'm wanting to be able to use it to go into like Google Maps to look at something there, or I need to send it to somebody. It's normally just easier for me to have it in one. So I'm going to go ahead and just choose the decimal degree. That seems to be kind of the standard most people want. So hit OK. Close. And if I do a redraw here and I click on a meter, you'll see here that we have our latitude and longitude on the left, or if I open up the form, you can see our latitude and longitude there. That could be, sorry, I got the lat long reverse there. I forgot what order it came in. And you can actually change that if you need that latitude and longitude to be flipped for a piece of software. Maybe you're exporting your data out in a Excel or a text file, and you need to import that into something and it's expecting them to be flip-flop. That is something you can change. We can change. I don't know if that's something that customers can change quickly, but it is something we can help change if you need that flip-flopped. But some other cool features or fields that you can add. Go back to like format. Let's say you wanted to combine like two fields. So you wanted to have the ID and the address layer all in one. So I'm just going to call it a cat for this concatenation field. And what this allows you to do is, let's do our ID, and then I'm going to do a dash, and then our address, and OK. So what this is going to do, that's how we can add these fields. You hit add field. You can choose which fields that are in the layer, and then you can type any other text you want. You can type anything here. So I'm just going to put a dash there, and OK, and OK, and close. So this would again would be something where you maybe need something concatenated, because that is the way your form has it written, and you want that on there whenever you print these or you send it to another person. Maybe you like to have it broke out for management, just quicker and easier management, but so maybe someone needs it in the 5- and then the address, or maybe you have the name, so you need 5- and then the person's name there. So you can kind of combine something that's already in the map in those layers. One thing to note, this does have to be below the fields that exist. So if this was above, it wouldn't fill in. So that's just something else to think about. The other cool thing you can do with like your water lines is we can do a length. So we can do a calculated length, do it in feet, meters, or miles, and you can tell it how many decimal places. So I'm going to go ahead and do like 1 decimal place in feet. OK, and close. Let's do a redraw. So now whenever we click on this water line, you can see it's 627 2/10. To click on this one, if I click on the right one, you can see that one's 24.9. So that's something you can add to your fields, your features, I mean. And then whenever you do like an Excel print, so if we go to our water lines, you could print this to Excel and then sum up all of those values, and then you would know how many miles or how many feet, depending on how you want to write it into your form, how much water lines you have. Let me see if there's any other ones. There's one more thing that I want to show you inside of here. Something we're going to be touching on later, but the long labels. So this area should normally be filled out with something that's useful. The ID isn't maybe the most useful. Water lines maybe aren't the best example of this. Let me switch to meters. You can see I have ID and address. And that just helps you identify the features whenever they pop up here on the left side, or whenever you do an index locate all, you can, or locate a couple of them, you can then identify those features individually. So that's something to watch out for. And then the sort by first number of fields down here at the bottom, you can use that to help you whenever you're making new features. That is what changes if it thinks there's a duplicate. So if you have that set to 1, it's only going to look at the ID field on here. So if I create a new one and I create a number 7 ID or again, and I make a second number 7, it's going to say, hey, that's a duplicate. Do you want to change that? But if you have that set to 2, it would look at the ID and the address. So if I accidentally made 2 with the same ID but different addresses, it's going to let me do that because it sees those as totally separate features. So that's something to kind of watch on how you have that set, like which one you which way you want to have that set. A lot of times for something like this where I'm wanting to track those IDs, I'm going to have it set on 1. For addresses, I would normally have it set for the address number all the way through the road name, all the possible features, because you're not normally going to have the same address with the exact number, same name, and everything. So that's where it would want it. I would want it to point me out that duplicate, but there's a good chance there's a 101 main and a 101 street. So that's where you'd want to have that set. Are we out of time, Leslie?
We'll see if there are any further questions. We haven't had any pop up. I think we're in the process of getting the mics opened. So if anyone does have any questions at this point, feel free to type them in the Q&A and we will be on the watch for that.
While we're waiting on that, let me lock my addresses. One new field that we've added is a date time field. And this is in a month, day, year, hour, minute, second, or you can do year first. And this is something that we added specifically for Engine 911, but it's also helpful if you're just wanting a date and time added to whenever you create something. So you can have it so then whenever you do a new feature, autofill new record with current date and time. So every time you do it, you can also have this so it auto updates after a feature change. So if you want to keep track of whenever something was updated last, so that would be moved on the map, anything in the form changed, or any kind of manipulation basically of the data, it would automatically update the date and time. So that's a cool feature that we just added recently. That's something I believe was 446 update. So that's something that's pretty cool that we can do that auto update after the change. So you can keep track of something. Super handy for your, utilities, for your addressing, anything like that, where you're constantly making changes and you want to be able to see when that was updated last. So, any questions, Leslie?
You mentioned 446. We have some users who don't know how they know which version they're on. Where do you find that information?
So at the top of your map, it'll show you there's actually 2 handy things up here. Let me get out of this. So it's a little darker. Your Think GIS, and then 446, and then these other numbers aren't super important. I tell people that normally whenever we send out an email to tell people, hey, there's a new version, we'll tell you exactly what version should be there. And then as we roll out new versions, these other numbers at the back will step up. But the 446 is kind of how we will talk to someone, a customer, like, oh, are you on 446? Maybe they're having a weird error or they're missing a tool that their coworker has. That's where you can look. Then the other thing nice up here is you can see where your map opens up. So you can see my map is in the C drive, ThinkGIS folder. Then there's a Corey County, and then the CoreyCounty.tgm. So that allows you to see what TGM file, which is kind of like I described it as like your Word document. This is all of your display settings. That is the file I'm looking at. And that lets you see if you are looking at your local map or if you have a network map also, which we have some dispatch centers that have both. So they're working off the network for every day. But then if the network would go down for whatever reason, they can switch to a local map. Some users do the same thing with their laptop. Maybe they have a map that they can, when they're out in the field, they can look at things, but whenever they get back to the office, they're using the network map that other people are editing things, and they don't have to sync their map like every day to see those changes type of thing.
Perfect. There aren't any other questions. We did open up the mics, so if anybody would like to ask a question in person, feel free to. As usual, otherwise the Q&A is open if you don't want to chat. So
While
we
we're
got about
waiting
5 more
on,
minutes.
if anybody jumps in, one thing you can add to your layers, this has actually been in here for a little bit. Don't know if we've ever talked about any of our trainings, but the long string up here is the GUID for the layer. And then if you want to, you can actually add a GUID, and that's just a unique ID for each feature. So you can hit an add GUID down here. And that's going to add a unique ID for each feature. And what that can help you with is if you take a layer, you break it into like 4 pieces and give it to 4 like let's say you had interns in your office. You split the layer into 4 pieces, gave each intern something to work on. Whenever you bring it back in, that will help you be able to verify that there aren't any duplicates. It also helps you be able to track where that feature came from, things like that. So the GUIDs, that's just something we've added recently to help be able to have a unique ID for each feature. A lot of other GIS software uses that as kind of like the gold standard of making sure you don't have duplicates, or if you move data from one database to another database and then back, you're not adding a new feature. You can just update the current feature. So that's something that we can add if you're needing that. Some external software may need a unique ID just to go off of, so it's just something handy to have. Any questions, comments?
And feel free to unmute your mics to ask any questions if you'd like. But no, I think we're good so far.
Okay, so just to go over some of these other feature fields, I'm just going to hit news here so we can talk about some of the different ones. So the text, integer, decimal, that's just a data type thing. Most of the time that's set up the first time and you don't need to manipulate it on your data whenever it's maybe brought in from a shapefile or something. Most everything's going to be text in general. The date is like a normal just date field that you've had for years. The yes, no is super handy. If you just need something that's just yes, no, and it just gives you a drop down to be able to choose those. One of my favorites on the uses is the calculated area. I use that a lot with parcels, and I'll have that on my trace layer and on my parcels. And that just helps me when I'm looking at a deed to be able to say, the deed says 3 acres and I'm looking at this parcel and it's 6. It's like, well, that's a little big. I'm going to keep clicking around because maybe the deed's not real clear on which parcel it's talking about. And then I can try to zone in from there. It's also helpful whenever I'm doing my trace layer. When I draw it in, I've drawn in that deed. And then I say, the deed says 6 acres. Mine's only coming in 4. What did I miss? Did I cut off an area? Did I miss some calls? Something like that. Or maybe I draw it in and it's a whole lot bigger. And I'm like, okay, I've obviously typed something in incorrectly. I've typed in 11 instead of 1, or I've typed in 100 instead of 10 type of thing. So it's a nice double check for you. The auto number field, that's something you can use for as you're creating features to just automatically set up an ID number for you. It doesn't let you, like, as you add new features, and if you delete one and you add a new one, it's not going to reuse that number. So it's, in my opinion, it's more useful whenever you're doing like adding a whole bunch of features really quickly and it just auto fills in the number. Otherwise, I like to just fill in the number manually for most of the things I'm doing, because I'm normally when I'm helping people, I'm helping with something that's already been established and we're just updating existing data. But if you're starting brand new, the auto number can be handy. It'll zip through things really fast. You can also use it for, like, if you're doing a work order layer, to automatically fill in the next work order number for you, things like that. So it can be handy. The auto area search results, you could use that to auto fill in. If I actually look at my address layer, we can add like a zip code. And then if we do auto area search and choose zip codes, this will automatically fill in the zip code based on the zip code layer. Hit OK, and close, do a redraw. And then you can see on the left there, or if we open it up, there's our zip code automatically filled in. So that can be super handy for filling in your townships, your zip codes, even the county. Like if you're like a Batesville that's between two counties, you could have that set up so that it automatically filled in, just so then you knew when you placed a meter or valve or some feature, you'd know which side of the county line it is. So I think they're putting the hook on me here to pull me off. So I think we're ready to go to the next, let's go to the break, and then we'll start the next section. Displayed it wrong. There we go. Welcome back, everyone. Let me end this slideshow, bring the map back here. We are going to now talk about feature links and global links. So that would be linking files to the map. I think we're going to start out with feature links. That's, in my opinion, the kind of the simpler to configure type of thing. So I'm going to start out. Let's turn off some of these layers I've got locked. And we're going to lock our section corners. Going to tie some pictures here to that, PDFs. So I'm going to use the index to scroll to there. So I've only got the one section corner in here at the moment. It's all the one I've taken the time to place at the moment. So you can see our section corner here. If we turn on our sections, something I don't normally have on, but you can see our lines here. We can click on our different sections and see those, and then our section corner. So this is section corner 1A of 17 T7N, range 9W. So to set up a link, you can hit the little wrench. Then there is add remove links right here. So if there's no links at all, this area will be blank as it is. If there are links existing, they would be in this list here. So we're going to go ahead and add one. And whenever you click that, there are two options. There's the feature link local and the AWS feature link web. So the difference there is the local link is going to be either stored on your computer or your server, something like that, something you can access through like Windows Explorer. The web is going to store that on the basically the cloud, the Amazon store that we have set up there that stores that in the cloud for you. You do have to have internet access to be able to access those. The nice thing is it cleans up the feature management and where those files have to live on people's computers or on the network. It simplifies that for you. So I'm going to start with a local file to kind of just show not really the old way, but the one way you can link something to a local file that's either on your computer, on the server, someplace like that. So we're going to hit OK to that. We're going to give it a descriptive name. We'll call this the card, and we're going to browse for that. And then in my Corey County folder, which I'll bring this down just so you can see. So this is in my C, Think GIS, and then Corey County. So that's my main county folder. And inside there, I have my section corners. And then I have my corner cards. And then I have one for 17. Section 17, truck 7 north, range 9 west, 1A. So that's where we can check our feature over here. Nice thing is whenever you click on a feature and you do another tool or something, most of the time the feature window on the left here will still show up. So that way you can kind of check and make sure you're clicking the right one. If a good chance in your area, you're going to have, hundreds or thousands in this corner card. So you have to scroll through and find it. Just for the simplicity of the webinar, I simplified it down to one. So we're just going to click that and hit open. So you'll see here that it fills in this script for us. You could actually type this in manually if you want to learn the syntax and type it in, or you can actually edit this. So let's say I had this set up for 1A, and for some reason I select the 2A PDF. You can come in here and change that to 1A. So you can actually modify this script area here. You can actually have multiple things happen. So if you hit enter here, it'll let you type another script of some sort. Normally, if you're linking a PDF, you're just going to have it do one thing. Later, whenever I show running a command on the map, we'll show where you can do the multiple lines and what that would be useful for. Now, the other thing I want to point out is you'll see this data directory. So that is set up in the layer settings, and you can point where that data directory is. This is the way I suggest people set things up. Use the data directory here. The section corners, corner cards, and that folder structure can be hopefully the same on everybody's computer, but the data directory allows you to change where that folder is on their computer. So right now, that data directory, like I showed, was in C, Think GIS, Corey County, and then section corners, and then corner cards. So you can see that path there. The C, Think GIS, Corey County is all being replaced by this data directory. I'll show you where that's set up here in 1 second. So I'm going to go and hit OK here. Okay, and you'll see the little card shows up, and you'll see this little exclamation point. If we had, when we do the AWS, you'll see that that is I believe it's a star. When I add that, we'll be able to see that. I forget what it is now off the top of my head. One thing also I want to point out, on most of these windows, there is a help button. So if we go to add or change on this one, I'm just going to hit change. There's another help here. So if you click that help, it'll pull up our help menu, and this will actually talk you through what each little button does. Oh, it's a $sign for the AWS ones. It'll pull up, and a lot of these menus are actually interactive. So if you want to know about hitting this add, change, delete in these buttons, it'll actually pull up a form to talk more about it. So I'm just going to hit add just to show you, and that'll come down here to the add section. It talks about the links, talking about all the different features. And then the other cool thing about our help menu is a lot of these pages have a notes at the bottom here, and that'll sometimes have information on the a maximum amount. So a feature can have up to 40 links attached. That's something you could have, 40 things, and that can be a lot of different things. It doesn't have to be a PDF. It can be a website. It could be a command to do something inside the map, or to send a command to some external piece of software if they allow that type of communication. You can link it to the actual folder where these things live, and I'm going to be showing that here in a little bit on the global links on basically it's called a pick run, which allows you to set up the folder, and then you can run a file from inside of there. So that's kind of cool about that. So the help menu, I'll just go ahead and minimize that. So the help menu is super helpful to whenever you're doing anything in the map. Most of our forms or anything you're doing will have a help menu. And then to get to the help menu, just whenever you're on the map, you can just go to help up here. So that's nice stuff. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK here and close and OK. Let's do a file save and a redraw. So now whenever we click on this corner, you'll see it has a little card there, or if I double click it, little card. So that's that text that I typed in to change that. You can change that to whatever you want it is. There is a limit on how long that is. So sometimes you have to get creative if it's a really long name, but that's where that text shows up. And that's going to always be at the top here for the feature links that you add this way. In the third section, we're going to talk about modifying this form, and you can actually put these links other places in the field, in the feature form to make it so then you can maybe have the description of what the link is, and then the link can be there. Other than all kinds of neat things you can do in the feature form to make it look cool. But if we click on the card, you'll see it pulls up. Let me pull this over here so it's on screen. You can see, section corner card 1A. There's a little star and the two roads just to kind of show. And then, like this one has latitude, longitude. Your different cards may have different information, but that's how you can link that file. So let me show you on the data directory how that's set up, because that's kind of critical to make these work. So if we look on the section corners, under the data directory is a column here. Right now it's set to default. So if I need to change that to a network location, that's where you could set that here. But if you click where it says default right now, it'll show you here at the bottom where it's going. And this is the default location. So it's C, ThinkJS, and Corey County. So that is my map files folder. It's the way I like to describe it. But let's say we wanted to change that. So it just goes to the C, ThinkGIS, and then I'm going to call it like section cards. So that's the folder I'm going to have. So I'll hit apply. And then let's pull this up. And it's over here on the screen. So I pull it back in here. So inside the ThinkGIS, I'm going to make a folder called section corner cards. And that's that directory is now pointed. And then I'm going to go up to Corey County. And I'm going to grab this. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and grab just the file. So this is basically your management of where your files are. So I'm going to paste it here. So this is now where these files are going to live. Now we can go in and modify the feature to make this more generic so that all they would have to have is the section corner cards folder in their ThinkGIS folder, and then the links would work since we have the data directory. The nice thing is let's say this section corner folder isn't in their ThinkJS folder. Let's say it's on their desktop. You could change this path to be their desktop / section corner cards, or maybe it's on a flash drive or an extra memory cards pushed into their computer because their hard drive's not very big, and maybe that's on the E drive. Let's say you could change the data directory to be E : section corner cards. So this is where you can set the files into a more generic folder of just one folder. And you can basically have the files run as from a generic any location, and then the user can set that. So I was losing train of thought there. The data directory is something that each user can set individually. So whenever we reinstall the map, we can say, hey, we're going to check and make sure these section corner links work. We click on one, it doesn't work. We go track down where those files are, and we can change that where it is. So I'm actually going to change this to be just ThinkJS, I think, actually. So that's where the home folder where it's going to live is the ThinkJS folder. And if we go back to our feature, we're going to modify our link to just say data directory, section corner cards, and then the name of the file /. So this is going to be the data directory, which is the C ThinkJS, and then the section corner cards is our folder. I'm going to pull that back up here so we can see that folder. So section corner cards, and then our file is actually there. So this is a way to make it more generic, to make it so that whenever a user has these files somewhere else, possibly a network, possibly a flash drive, could just be a different folder in their computer. Maybe they want the section corner cards, the folder to be inside of just like attachments inside their ThinkJS folder. You can make that whatever you need it to be. So hit OK, close, and OK. I'll do a redraw, and we'll see if I set it up right. I'm going to click the card over here because you can click it on the feature. Like if we open this up, you can click here, or you can click it over here on the left. Oh no, I made a mistake. Section corner cards. Did I misspell something? This is the kind of stuff I really enjoy digging into this. Section corners. Oh, so that's why whenever I modify that existing one. Oh, not that one. I always do that too. I always hit this modify form layout instead of add remove links. And I'm gonna hit change, and we got an extra S here. And okay, and close, and okay. Do a redraw here. Now, if we click the card, it'll pull it up. So that's where the data directory allows us to move that file anywhere we want. What's really cool is there's actually already a like variable for the ThinkGIS. So let's say that 90% of your people are going to have it in the ThinkGIS folder. You can actually use a %TMDIR%. So you could set this in the layer for them. So that way it's set up to be in the ThinkGIS directory. But let's say someone ends up moving somewhere else, then they can change this to something else to point to that network or that flash drive. But that'll make sure it's always in the ThinkGIS directory. So let's hit close. Let's do a file save and a redraw. Now, if we click that, you can see it pulls it back up. So that's where these additional path choices here can this setting, this data directory setting, can allow you to, the editor can maybe be working off the ThinkGIS folder, and the actual users can be working off of a network drive, and that's where we can change that. You can also use a map directory. So it would be pound map dir, not pound, sorry, percent map dir %. So that will actually move that to the map directory. So if we wanted to move that into the right spot, we would drag this into Corey County. And now it's going to look in the map directory, which if we click off and click back, you'll see it'll fill in this area. It'll tell us the C ThinkGIS Corey County. That's the same as the default. That may or may not be what people need. So that's where you can force it to do the map directory. So wherever their files get synced to, you can force it into the map directory. If for some reason they're set up with a complex, looking at the network for some files, looking at their local for some files, sometimes that setting may be necessary. And then the last one to use, the third path variable that's pretty common is that data directory one that we saw here. So I'm going to do this, go back to here. So you can see that one here is that % data dir %. So you can use these in other places around the map whenever you're needing to reference a location in something. Most of the time it's in these linking things, but it can also be used in scripts. It can also be used in some of the custom buttons and things. Could be using some of these directions, this directory rerouting to set up where that file or set up where that script is running from. So that's how we're doing that. The other way you can do this is you can do what's called pick run, and that will basically look at a folder and then show you a list of, let's say, PDFs or PNGs or different things. So let's say instead of this card we want to reference, let's say we want to clear this out, and I'm going to call this the index. So pick run, and then you can browse for this and then change it to pick run. Or what I like to use is your file explorer. And then we're going to go back into Corey County. We're going to go into our section corners. And then you'll see here we have our different tracks. So this is track 7 north. And then this is range 9 west. And then the index file is this file right here. But then all these other files have to do with the, I'm sorry, I was going to set it up so it pointed to this index first. So this is the index file. So we're going to do a run. Actually, we can do a browse. Getting ahead of myself here. So section corners, track 7 north, range 9 west, and then the C1 was our index. So we're going to hit open. So we're going to set up one link for that. Then I'm going to add a new link, and this is where I'm going to do that pick run. And this will just be like, I'm going to just do call it PDFs. And maybe it's pages. Maybe that would be better. That's what the index is showing is what page. So browse. I'm going to go ahead and just choose one to have the thing to show you how you can change this to a pick run. Space. So it's going to look at all those files. And then instead of the file name for a pick run, we are going to change that to a star.pdf. And what that'll do is it will look at that folder and then it'll look for all the PDFs and it'll show us a pop-up to allow us to choose which page we want to open. Just want to hit OK. Close. OK. Let's do a file save and redraw. So now I'm going to go ahead and double click this, open this up. So if we click our index, we will get our like plot layout of all of the sections here. This is section 17. So it's right here. Let me zoom in a bit. So here's 17, and looks like page 79 has to do with this corner up here. So we're going to go grab page 79. So now we can close or minimize this. We go to our pages. And then if we scroll down, it's the last number here. Links out. There's page 79. And OK. And then there's the extra information about that. You could use this for all sorts of things. You could have it for like school plans. You could have it for your hazmat listings for different things. And that's where you could have a link that maybe lists all the things. And then you could have a page for, you could have a folder that pops up all the different PDFs. It does only show PDFs. So if there was a PNG or a JPEG, it will ignore those files. So that way you can kind of have this list a little more, parsed down to just show you the information you're interested in. So that is our featured links for that. Let me zoom over back to let me do a file save quick. Let's go back to our view over here. So the other thing you can do with featured links is a command in the map. So if we pull up our daycare here, we're going to add a link. Oh, gotta lock it for editing first. So let's go ahead and unlock that, relock that. So if we go to our daycare, we're going to add a link. And what we're going to do here is we're going to turn on the floor plan for this daycare. And this is something I just drew up real fast. It's not super high quality or anything, but it will show you an example here. So we're going to do another local link. Your scripts, your websites, and your local files are all going to be local. The web is just going to be files, just so you know. That your local file, and we're going to call this floor plan. Oh. And then, so on the run script, if you wanted to type this out, you can go look it up, but you can hit this odd command and it'll help you do this. And then it gives us just some default different things. You can have it so it, the index, so from here, you can have it pop up the index to browse that particular layer. You could do a redraw or a refresh of the screen. That's something we are going to use after we've set our command. We can also do this turn on a layer. So that's what we're going to use. I'll go over the other ones. You can change the settings. So you could actually have it so that on here, you could have it so then this daycare changes color, changes the opacity. I don't know. Yeah, I think you can change opacity. You can have it change so then the line gets thicker or thinner. You can do a lot of these different things if you want to be able to change a setting to a layer right from the layer. Mostly, I use this for turning a layer on and off for these floor plan type things. You can also do a search form, so you can search a particular layer. So you can have it so then from in here, you can hit search and then you can search a layer. You can search a particular layer. You can search the same layer. So you could say, from this floor plan, I also want to be able to search the churches layer, or want to search the garden layer. You could have a link to be able to pop that up. You could do your search, and then you can see that data. And then the zoom to, you can actually use this to zoom to a particular point on the map. Something that's helpful for, I saw a public safety place, they used it to, they could do a index search, or if it popped up on the left side here, they could then say zoom to, and it would actually zoom to that school or zoom to that area from just having that feature form up. And that kind of allowed them to be able to just zoom the map automatically to that feature from the index or something else when they're looking at the feature form. Because once you have the form up, you'd have to go back to the index to do a locate. So that allowed them to be able to zoom right to it. So that was just something they've used. We're going to use our turn on and off. So we're going to hit OK. We're going to choose our daycare floor plans. And then your visibility, this is like the setting where you can have on, off, or auto, and then it gives you some default auto options. So I'm just going to choose on and OK. And then below this, we're going to need another command, and this is that redraw, which we can go in here and hit add command, redraw, and OK, and it'll put it in for us, but I just typed it in. So, but that's what we're going to need a redraw after. The reason you have to have that, you turn a layer on, and then after the layer's on, if the map doesn't do a redraw, you can't see it until you either pan or do a redraw on the map. So we're going to hit OK. And I'm going to go ahead and do another one. This is going to be floor plan off. So we're going to do the same thing, add command, turn layers on and off. We're going to choose our daycare floor plans. We're going to choose off. And then we're going to have to add that redraw below. So we're going to say add command. I'll do it from here, redraw, and OK. And OK. And then close and OK. So let's hit a file save, do a redraw. So now whenever we click on our daycare, which we can actually have this pop up on the left side when we do a search, but for right now, I'm just going to show it from here. So the person's clicked on this, they can hit floor plan on, and you can see the floor plan draws in. I can zoom in on that just to make it a little bigger. You can see where they have the bathroom, the playroom, music room, lobby, break room, and office all marked. And then if you want to turn that back off, you can just hit off. That goes away. So these same links will pop up in an auto area search. So if we do a 504 on the North Jason Street, you'll see the auto area search pops up. Here's the daycare layer. Here's our two links, and then it tells you what the feature is also. So you can tell what feature you're going to be turning on and off. So you can just turn them on and turn them off from there. So that's something cool you can do with some commands. There's some other commands like the zoom to I talked about that you can have it so it zooms to that feature. And the zoom to, basically you can set what level it zooms the actual feature to, and that kind of helps you be able to, like, if you want to zoom really close or zoom really far out, you can actually set that up in there. And then one of the other things you can link is a website. So let's say you want to have the website for this daycare. So we're going to do an add remove, then add again. We're going to do a local. And then we are going to do a website up here. And then I'm just going to put in our website. But you can put in the web address there. I believe you don't need the run. So we're going to hit OK. Close. Okay. Let's just do a redraw to show you don't actually have to save between each one. But if we hit website, oh, yep, I think you do have to have run. Something I should have tested the other day. So most of these scripts are going to require a run in front of them to be able to do something externally. And then pulls up our website. So you could have it do that for the website for the daycare. You could have it pull up their Facebook page, wherever you have a web address for, you could link that. You can also, like if you had something like you want to do on your addresses or on your voter registration areas, you could have it so then it could pull up the state website or the federal website for the representatives. So if someone comes in, asks about that, you can say, yep, let me click this and pull that up, and then you can show them and say, yep, your state representative's this, your federal representative's that. You can have those kind of linking things. The other thing cool with websites is you can actually have it use part of the feature information to put that into the website. So if you're accessing, let's say your billing information for your taxes, let you have the parcel number in the web address, you can have that for the link to pull up your tax billing website and then have the parcel number plugged in and it'll pull it up. I don't have an example of that. I was trying to find a good example, but I know there's sites that let us do that. So that is something that we can do by using the actual feature. I'm going to show that more in the global links on how that works, but that is something you can do. Let me go ahead and scroll this. Looks like Leslie has a question. Go ahead, Leslie.
We have a couple actually. So when you selected the daycare in the side search bar, the feature name was yellow. Where do you go to make that change?
That is set up in the auto area search. That's in the map settings here. That's something I feel like would be something better if you call in, have that question, have us call in, have us set that up. That's kind of a big can of worms to open up and try to select, but it is set up here in this auto area search. So next question.
So you mentioned in talking about the daycare, having that floor plan. What is the best practice for overlaying the CRG maps, or is that a little too detailed for what we're doing today?
That's probably outside of what we're talking about today. The CRG stuff, that's something we can always talk to customers if they want to let us know they're interested in that. We can talk to them. Problem with CRGs, I don't know if that's in every area, so that would be another question: is do they cover the area, cover the customer specifically?
So reach out if you still do, that particular user, if you still do have questions on that, reach out to our team and we'll review that with you. Let's see. When making the changes to the data directory and adding these links, are these changes exclusive to the local machine, or is this something that would be backed up on sync?
So the data directory column is saved in your TGM that's on your computer. The feature link where it's set up in here, that is saved in the actual layer. So if we had something here with a data directory, that's saved in the layer, and that is moved through sync. Anything set in this column is actually saved in your map on your specific map. So each map would be individual. So if you'll say you have five people in an office, one person's the editor, 4 viewers, the person creates this layer, they would have to go around to the other 4 and make sure this is set up. And that's kind of a one-time. Normally you get it set up once and then it's set up for the rest of the time. So.
And the attachments themselves would depend on the setup of how
it depends on where they're sharing. And that's where I was going to we're going to talk about the AWS next, to talk about convert an existing one to an AWS, which we can show now. So let's zip back over to our section here. So looks like I need to lock my layer again. Edit. So the AWS links has a really nice feature in the fact that, I'm just going to put this index on there, is you can basically store this in the cloud, and then you don't have to worry about moving this folder, copying it to multiple computers, or copying it to a network location that everybody can share. That's kind of the downside of the feature links, is they have to have access to the data. So you can either put it on sync, which isn't like the best plan because it can just take a long time for everything to sync down. Normally, it's easier to have it on a network location that everybody can access, especially if you're doing a big project like Section Corners where you're scanning new documents pretty often. It's a lot easier just to have those on a network location. Everybody points there and can pull them up. The nice thing about the AWS is you can upload those to the web and then you use the web to download them. And they don't have to worry about that step of where do I put them on the network? Do I carry a flash drive around and copy files to each person weekly, monthly, however often the data updates? That's the nice thing is this updates automatically. So one cool thing you can do with AWS is if you have an existing link, you can convert it to an AWS link with just a click of a button. So when we click that button, you're going to get a warning. This is the same warning you're going to get anytime you start to upload something to AWS. It's basically warning you that anything that's uploaded up here, anyone that has WTH software that can access this layer will have access to this data. So it's basically just a warning to say, if you put it up on an AWS and another user in the county or another, like, maybe neighboring county or another department, if they have access to the layer, they're going to have access to this data. So you don't want to put like public information, anything that you can't make public, any private information, you might not want to put on AWS this way unless you have it locked down to make sure that people don't have access to the layer to be able to have access to the data. So we're going to hit OK to proceed. It'll take a second. It'll upload that for us. Then you'll see this little $sign. I'll move it them down to the pages, but you can see the little $sign. That tells you that we have an AWS link there. And then the little exclamation point tells us it's a local link. So let's hit close and OK. And whenever we click on our little guy here, let's go ahead and just open them up. And we hit the index. This is actually going to go out to the internet and download that and open it up. Just for people's knowledge, if you're curious where these are going, they're going to go into your GIS folder. And then there's a downloads folder. And then there's that GUID that I showed for the layer. So that's the layer GUID. Basically, these are stored on AWS in a folder with the GUID for the layer. So that's how they're organized on the back end. And that's where that, open that up, and then there's that file. So it'll download these files as you need them, and this is where it's going to store them. If for some reason you need to be able to access it, if you're offline, you opened it before, you could probably go in here and dig for it. But just also to point out that you do need access to be able to write to this folder. That's something we run into once in a while with permissions, is not being able to write to the folder. So that's something whenever we set up your GIS install, or IT does, we try to make sure you have permissions to write to these folders. But that could be a gotcha that we have to watch out for. But to set up a new one, so you can just go add, remove links, and hit add. Then we're just going to choose the AWS web and OK. And then basically you can just give it a name. I'm just going to call it temp. We're going to browse for our file. And we will do that page 79. You'll see that the map automatically opened up the folder I was in last. It doesn't always open to the folder you were in last if you closed the map and reopened it. That's just something that it's like Windows is just has a way of choosing what folder is going to open. So always make sure you are opening the right folder before you upload something, just so you are uploading what you want. But we're going to go to page 79 and open. It's the same warning telling us, hey, this is going to be uploaded. Anyone has access to it. And OK. It's going to fill all that in for us. And then we're going to hit OK. And close. OK. Let's do a save and refresh. And if we open it up, there's our temp. There's our page. And then again, it is in our C. My file explorer is being slow today. But it's going to be in that downloads folder, basically. One thing cool you can do also with feature links and basically links in general is let's look at the pages one. That is the local one, just to look at this pick run. You can actually do automatically execute when the form is opened. So if we do that, and OK, and close, and OK. Whenever I double click this form, it's going to automatically pop up the pick run instead of popping up the form. So that can be handy if you are wanting to be able to do a step and you're trying to just make it so you have less amount of clicks. If maybe you don't ever need to pull up the form and you want to be able to just run this command, you could also have it so then it did something like, if we go over here to our ABC daycare and we add remove links, turn this on, we can have this automatically execute when we open, to automatically open, turn on the floor plan when we open the form. So let's do a save fresh. Double click that. This is going to be one of those windows because of the parcel and the daycare are using the exact same area. Let's choose the daycare. We hit OK. You'll see that it put the floor plan on and then it popped up the form. So you can make it so that it automatically closes the form. That's the other checkbox there. So you can have it close the feature when executed. So we can actually have that so then it won't pop up the form and it will turn the, I'm going to turn those back off, do a refresh. So we can double click, hit OK. It'll execute and then it'll turn on those and then it won't pop up the form. If you need to access the form to do some modifications to something, you can go back to your daycare. You can do that, hit view record. And that way you can actually view the form, make a modification to that link. So we can turn that back off so it doesn't close the form automatically. Okay, close. Okay. Let's do a redraw. And we'll put up the daycare. And so see the form still pops up, but it automatically turned on, but the layer was already on there. So that's kind of the two types of linking. Do we have any questions?
Yes,
This is the feature link. This is the feature link part.
For the sake of understanding the setup, we do have a user wondering, was that particular floor plan for the daycare something that was saved locally that you're accessing locally?
No, so that is actually a layer. So that's where this floor plan is actually a layer. So if we turn that off there, that's what that's doing, is turning a layer on and off.
So in this situation, again, if we're getting more in depth with floor plans, that would be something to reach out to a WTH team member on.
Yeah, if you have a question on doing floor plans like this, yeah, definitely reach out. We can help you do these neat things with links and turn things on and off. And yeah, floor plans, you can have PDFs that you could link. You know, you could do that same thing. I just drew this in to kind of show another way to do a floor plan so you can actually see it on the map. And then, like Leslie alluded to, the CRG, it's kind of the same idea, but it's like a graphic that shows up on the map. So, and that's something we can always give you guys a demo of sometime if you guys like to see that.
Otherwise, we have the mics open if people would like to unmute, ask questions, or of course, ask them in the side panel Q&A. We did have another question, but I am getting the answer for that at the moment. So.
Okay. Well, while we're waiting on any questions, I will go over a little bit on global links. It's a lot of the same type of things. So on the actual sections, if you look at the columns here, there's this global link column. And you can only have 4 global links. So that's something, the feature links allows you to have a lot more total links. But the global links are nice is because they can actually maybe point to something that's inside of the layer. So let me actually zoom back over to our section corners. Okay. So I want to look at this section. So I'm going to pop it over on the left. I'm going to pull up my layer settings and my link. And let's say I want to do the pages. Page. I'm just going to call it page just for simplicity. And I'm going to do a browse to get me to the page 79 again. But what I'm going to do, oh, I'm sorry, I was going to do a pick right here, actually. Actually, I can browse to one to start my path for me. So pick round, So I'm going to use my data directory, section corners, and then what I want to do is replace our track and different things. And then I'm going to do a star PDF again. So what this is going to do, we're going to use our field value. So this R9W, we're going to replace with a little caret there, and then that is range, and then track will be here. Actually, I have it as township, but I think that should actually be track. Do what's in my field. So as you can see in our actual feature, we're going to use the T7 North we replaced with the township, which is the feature name. And then the range, that's what we replaced the R9W with. So basically this will use the data in the layer to choose which folder to show us a list of PDFs from. So we can call this pages and OK. And close. And do a file save and redraw. So now if we click on this section here or this section here, so these are two different sections that are right next to each other, so they're going to be the same track. But if we hit pages, it'll pull up that same PDF. So then if we zoom to another part of the map, so this is going to be that R8W. If we hit pages, it'll pull up a different list. So this is actually the R8W list instead of the R7 list. R9, sorry, R9. So that's that list. So that'll allow you to be able to, from the global links, you don't have to set up the exact path to each one individually. You can do like global link using the fields to be able to search where that is on the map. You could probably use that with section corners, depending on how your section corners are, how your fields are laid out. The section lines was the easy one to be able to set up and show that. But it's nice that you can do that. And then, so like this one, we know that C is the index. We could pop that up. We can say, oh, we need page 79. So we click on that one again, scroll down to 79. And there that is. And these are locally stored on your computer. So it has the same problems as feature links. It has the same setting for the data directory. So you can use that data directory. You'll see whenever we set up our link, it used the data directory right there. So that's where you'll want to definitely use data directory and not a hard path to a network location. You'll definitely want to replace that with data directory and then set that data directory up for each map as you need it. Any questions? Any comments? Don't need to be afraid.
None here.
So the other thing you can do with global links is websites, and that's where you could use a have a field on the actual links, and that's something you could do is, let's go back to our garden. And let's add a website field. And one thing on the text is this field length. We're going to talk about this more in the best practices, but you'll definitely want to expand that sometimes. 20 characters may not be long enough to fit whatever you need. So what we can do now is let's pull up the Green Thumbs, and their website is greenthumbs.com. And then the Garden Guild can be something like that. So you can use a global link on those. To actually use, so run and then website. And that will actually use the website in the feature to fill that in. Let's do a redraw. I'm going to change one of these to something like WTH, GIS.com. Should have done that before. Something that I know I can click on. I don't know what green thumb will bring up. I would be afraid to do that live. But you can see the website's listed here, and you'll see that the website will actually let you click it there. And what you could have is the link there could be to the website using this with additional text added, or it could be vice versa. This could be the main website. Then you could have additional text here that all gets added together into the website link. But we can click the link, pulls up our website, or if you click here, it'll also pull up the website. The map's smart enough to see that that's a link and pull that out. That's something that I've seen a lot of places use to like link to our web GIS. You can have it so then it links right to there. We can help you set that up if you guys want that. Link to the property record cards is normally something that's pretty easy to set up. So that way you can click on a parcel, have a PRC link, click on that, and it'll take you to our website to show you that. So, any questions, Leslie?
No, I think we're good. If we want to break
okay.
away for the 10-minute break.
Yep, I think we can break here pretty easily, and we'll go from there.
Sounds good. See you in 10.
Okay, let's get started on our third session of the day. We are going to be talking about, I called it editing best practices. This is just some this is just some things that I have found over the years that customers sometimes don't know about, these little minutiae or settings to make it quicker and easier to do things. First thing we're going to talk about is the FIPS code that is on the beginning of a lot of the layers you'll see. So if we look in our layer list here, layer settings, you'll see the file name column. You'll see down through here our different layers. It has the FIPS code, the 8675309. But you'll see there's one that isn't that. And the reason I like to have all my FIPS codes be the same, assuming they're all from the same county, what that FIPS code is a federal ID number for like the county or community. So it could be your municipality, it could be your county. So like this section is actually from my home county of Sullivan County. So you'll see that the section is 18153. So if we hit add layer and add an existing layer, the reason it's nice to have your FIPS code set up is if we had a layer in here without a FIPS code, it would be down here at the bottom alphabetically. So that's where having things alphabetical that way is important. And that's where you'll see the sections up here. That's from Sullivan County. So it's 18 is the state, 153 is the county. So that tells me what county that came from. I basically modeled my Corey County off of my home county just because I have that data handy. The idea is all these other FIPS codes are right next to each other, so it makes them alphabetical, easy to see in the different lists. The other thing on FIPS codes, if you did want to change a FIPS code and it's already uploaded to sync, you need to call us. We need to change it on our side. It can't be, it's not something you want to rename. And then whenever you go to sync, you're going to get a this file's deleted type error in sync if you go to change anything. But let's say this is a brand new layer, or this is a layer that I've imported from another source, and I wanted to change the FIPS code to be my FIPS code to match my other data because I'm bringing it into my map. I want everything to be the same, so we can just change that file name from right here in the layer settings. If the layer's locked, it won't actually let you click. So like down here, Community Gardens, if I try to click in here, you'll see it's grayed out, the file name. But if we go to our sections, go to our file name, and we can clear out the other, and then we can do 8675309, and okay, and that'll update it there. And then if we do like our add layer, add existing layer, you'll see that it's no longer here at the top, it's all the way down here. So that just helps everything be alphabetical. It also helps you identify where data comes from. So if you have neighboring county data and your home county data, they're going to have two different FIPS code. That helps you just better identify between the two data sets, which one is your home parcels, which one is your neighboring county parcels. So the FIPS codes are super helpful. To set those automatically when you create a new layer, like if we create a new layer right now, and I'm just going to call it testing, and hit OK. And you'll see the name will automatically add the FIPS code to the beginning. So if you want to be able to set that up, if your map's not already doing that, that is up here under Setup and then Map Settings. And that is set right here, File, Layer File Name Prefix. So that's where you can change that to something to match your FIPS code. If you're a municipality and you had a copy of the county map, your FIPS code may be the county FIPS code, and you might want to change it to your municipality's FIPS code. If you need help looking that up, you can probably just search Google to find it. But if you need help looking it up, we can help you look that up and help set that up for you in your layer. So FIPS codes are important. Just try to keep things organized. Try to be able to, if you shared your data with a neighboring county, it would help them know that the data came from you. Also, it helps prevent duplicate layer names. So if we go back to our existing layer, if we had multiple parcel layers from multiple counties in here, if they were all just called parcels.tml, they would just want to overwrite each other. But if you have the FIPS code, that helps you be able to have the three layers, be able to identify which one is which, and be able to all add them to the map easily. So the other thing on layers is it's important to spell things out and to have things have a name that is useful, not just for you, but for the end user that may or may not be in your position. So they maybe don't know the acronyms that you use, or they may not understand if, like, let's say a good example is this water valves. If this was just called valves, and there's two parts to naming. There's the layer name in this layer column and the file name. So let's say this just said valves. And let's say you have a gas, a water, and a electric layer. You're not going to have electric valves. That's not what they're called. They're called switches. But the valve in gas and water are going to be the same name. So if you just have valves, whenever a customer adds a layer to their map, and it doesn't have water valves in the file name, they're not going to know which group that is. And you can see I have my layers categorized here. So I could easily have just lines, valves, lines, valves, hydrants, and meters. And because my map has this categorized, I can clearly tell where these layers, what type of utility this is. When a customer adds these layers, they aren't going to get this category. That's something you set up after you've added the layer to your map. So if we remove the lines and the meters, just to show, we collapse all these down, just to kind of show how, they're going to open their map up and they're going to like, hey, I hear that there's water lines and meters to add. I'm going to hit add existing. And then we are going to find so the nice thing is I've named them with a full name. So water lines and water meters. Nice thing is you can select two layers at once to add them to your map at the same time. So you hit open. And now those are both added to my map. And you'll see they're here at the bottom. They're not up in my category. So if they don't have any category set up and they start adding layers, they're just going to have all these layers showing up. To set up your category, you can right click and categorize layer, or the more and categorize layer. But if you already have a category, you can just open it up and then drag these in. So that's what's important about naming these. And the reason it's important to name them is whenever we get to the next little piece, we're going to save the settings to the layer. So we're actually going to have water valves, water lines. And you see whenever I added the meters and lines, it actually came in as water meters and water lines. And that's something I saved to the layer to make sure that it actually had that data. So this valves, I'm going to do a save settings to layer on this one. And that is under the more or the right click to get to this more. So we're going to hit yes and okay. That's basically saying, is it okay to lock the layer? I hit yes. And then the next one is like, hey, I'm going to save these settings. Okay. So now we've saved those. If I remove that layer, actually, I'm going to go ahead and put water valves here. So you'll see I have water valves here. So that's what my setting should be. I can do a file save. Everything's there. If I remove this layer and add it back to my map, you'll see it just comes in as valves. So if instead we would put water, capitalize that W, save settings to layer. Is it okay to lock? Yes. Display settings been saved. So now if we remove, oh, you know what? I didn't hit apply when I did my water. I hit apply. There we go. Now we can save our settings to layer. Yes. Okay. So again, we'll do the file save. We'll remove that layer. Add it back. And water valves. And you'll see it comes in as water valves. So that's something to saving settings to layer. And that's kind of what we're going to go into next. One more thing on layer names. I prefer, and normally it's best practice, not to put dates on anything unless they're an archive layer. So most of your end users, you have to look at it as you are presenting data for other people to use a lot of times as an editor. If you have like a floodplain layer, people will expect the floodplain layer they're looking at as being the most recent one. And then let's say you want to have one from last year or 10 years ago to be able to see where it changed. You would have that one dated as maybe floodplain 2016. And then the current one would just be floodplains. And the reason that is most of the time people are just going to want the newest, best data. And having the date in there, whenever they go to sync, they're going to just expect that layer to keep updating moving forward. If you change that, like if you every time you have a new floodplain, let's say every 3 years you get a new floodplain, like the Indiana DNR, sometimes those are changing monthly. If every time you change that, put a new date and time or whatever stamp on there, they're going to have to remove the old layer and add the new layer to see that. Where it's best just to continually update the same layer. And if you need an archive of that layer, like maybe your parcels, maybe once a year, which is not a bad idea, once a year to make a backup of your parcel layer. And then you can have, parcels 2015, parcels 2014, 2023 to be able to go back to and look at those different years. But on the normal parcel layer that everybody's going to use, they're just going to expect it to be called parcels.tml. They're not going to be looking for that parcels 2026. So then the next year, they're going to have to remove the 2026 and add 2027. So one thing, try to avoid dates, especially in the file name, because that's what sync is using to synchronize those down. The layer name, it kind of affects people a little less, but it's still, in my opinion, just kind of a pet peeve to see dates on something that is going to be just rolling updates going forward. So like your parcels, your addresses, things like that. An archive layer is fine to having a date, but most of your users aren't going to be using those archive layers. You may not even have those archive layers on sync in a group that everybody accesses. It may be in a private group just for like the auditor may have a parcels archive group that we can set up for you to keep those backed up. So the save settings to layer, there's a couple of different things that you kind of want to think about whenever you set things up. My biggest thing is I tell people to either have the layer off or set to auto with a min and max range that makes sense for a user. The water valves, water lines, whenever you have let's say you have a whole city covered in those, you have it set to on, someone adds it to their layer, and then they just get a sea of blue circles all over the map, and maybe they just want to be able to see that data periodically, it's nice to start that off as off or auto for them. Auto is not so bad once you're zoomed in, and that's where normally I would set that at like 0.5 miles or smaller for water valve features like that for people. You can always, as the editor, use it in the on position. Maybe you want to see them at more zoom levels, but your general users don't want their map covered in a bunch of blue circles, possibly, or the blue lines for all the water lines. Same thing with on your base map, like your parcels. You probably don't want those to be forced to on, so then whenever they open their map for the first time, it has to draw all those squares. Your addresses, same thing. That's a whole bunch of little points that are going to display. Most of the time, parcels and addresses, I suggest having those set to auto. And then whenever you like are setting up the layer initially, that's when you'll do like a save settings to layer. The opacity. So if we had like the zip codes, if I had the opacity set to on, and it's white right now, and I add the zip code layer to my map right now, let's say, and that's what I had the settings saved, it would come in and just blank everything out white. And I would be zooming in and out and be like, well, why is my aerial photography flashing? And then it goes white. That's because the zip codes is covering everything up. And that's where either the opacity should be set to something that's useful. So like maybe about 100. So it would just shade everything white. And you can see how like my garden and my daycare layers that way. That's kind of that's you're helping your end user have a better map experience. You're also preventing them from maybe covering up data and they can't see because it's all covered in white. Kind of actually saves me a phone call if you set the opacity on this big, zip codes are going to cover the whole county. So you don't want that to be shaded in solid. You want opacity, or a lot of times for a lot of layers, just an outline is all you really need. So that's where like the section lines, you could make the section lines shade in if you wanted, but normally the line is all you really need to be able to see. Same thing with like municipalities. Sometimes those will be shaded, and that's where you can use this auto. So at like 25 range, it's shaded, and then but at like 0.5, the shading goes off. Excuse me. So right now you can see it's off. We zoom out just a little bit, and that's not a big enough zip code. Help if I turn the color back on. That's the problem. So go back to max. So if we zoom out just a little bit, you'll see it's still not shaded. Zoom out a little bit more, and then it shades. And I just made a small zip code area for today's demo, but you can see how that will change as you zoom in and out. So we scroll in slowly. We'll scroll in, scroll in, scroll in, and then it goes away. So that's something nice you can do for some of your layers that maybe you want them to be able to see at max view, or you want them to see at that 5 mile range. And then once they get in a little closer, they can probably go away. Like your municipality boundaries, like the shading on those can be kind of annoying when you're zoomed in close because you want to be able to see the aerial photography really clear. But at a zoomed out point, it's nice to see that shaded area just to kind of make it pop out a little better. Good practices on your opacity is that 50 to 100 is kind of what I always tell people I like. You can go darker, you can go lighter. If you go all the way down to 0, if you instead of hitting none, all that is just a penalty on the map loading because it actually loads that at 0. So it's best not to use 0. It'd be better just to go to none instead of 0, or to set it to something that's actually going to shade, that type of setting. So that's where we have this set to auto 25 and 5. We can do a save settings to layer. It's going to ask if I want to lock it, and yes, and okay. So now whenever I go to add this to sync, let's say this is a brand new layer I've created, I want to add it to sync. Whenever someone adds that to their map, it'll be come in as the exact settings that I've decided make the most sense for them. Same thing for like the labeling. So labeling is something you can control from that initial add. Once they've added it to their map, though, they can change almost any of these settings, and you can affect them from afar. There is a button, though, to help them load. Let's say you said, hey, I've color coded my zoning. So you could do like a classify here. And feature name. So you can see we have 2 zip codes in my area that I've created. If you wanted them to be able to see that change, if they click on the actual file name, and let me unlock the layer, you can hit this apply TML settings, and that will actually load the settings that are in the layer. So then once they have synced the layer back down, you've saved settings to layer, you've synced it up, they've synced it down, they can hit this button and that'll apply those settings. I think you do have to leave the thing, but you'll see the zip codes now are no longer classified. So that loaded those out of the layer for me. And you can see the auto was set. So we can like turn that to on. We can change this to something like pink, and we can change this to something like dark red. And you can see it shades it in. We come in here, we can apply TML and hit close, and it goes back to the setting that's saved in the layer. So that's something you can do for your users if you're trying to do that classify. Maybe you don't have all the data in at the time, and later that's there. You can say, hey, hit this button, it'll load the settings, and they can just do a file save, and that'll be saved into their TGM. The TGM file, like we alluded to in one of the other sessions up here, that's where all these settings are saved. I always kind of tell people it's kind of like a Word document or something like that, where all your display settings are there, but the data is actually coming out of all these little TML files. The other thing you can set up to help your users is your geocoding. So the geocoding is this search suggestion up here at the top. So if we go to addresses, and let's say we have 2 address layers, maybe a county address layer and a city address layer, I'm going to just add city behind here in parentheses. And to make this show up right now, like if I would save, reload the map, it would rebuild this. But this rebuild search index will rebuild our index for us of any of the files. So we're going to do that. So now whenever I search this 504 North Jason, you can see that it has the city behind it. That's where a lot of your new layers you'll see don't have any kind of geocoding. So like the hydrants don't have anything right now. So if I wanted to add something to the hydrants, let me click on a hydrant so I can show you the different fields we can search. So like the hydrant ID does exist. So we can go to our hydrant. We can click inside here. And that's basically the pulling up this menu here. I realize this kind of jumps around while I'm going to pull it back to the center. I'm going to add field, and we're going to search the hydrant ID. And then, so then I know when I'm searching, if I start typing something randomly, I'm going to put hydrant. There behind there. And okay. And we're going to do a rebuild real quick here. So now if I start searching for HSL dash, I can start seeing all these different hydrant numbers. I can scroll through and pick one, and it'll zoom to it. So that's where you can set up these search suggestions and then save the settings to the layer. I know I feel like a broken record saying this, but that's the kind of stuff you can set up to kind of make the layer the highest value for the end users and for yourself. I mean, having these things set up is handy for you also. But a lot of times it's the editor is trying to create a layer that's useful to, for 20 or hundreds of people, not just for themselves. So it's nice to set some of this up ahead of time so they don't have to try to set it up later. A lot of times the viewer users aren't going to be as good at setting up some of these additional settings. You can set up the selectability. You can set that either way. Normally you're going to have it selectable, but you could force that to off, save settings to layer. When they add it, it comes in unselectable. That would normally be like your aerial photography. That's not normally on sync. We are starting to put some of our web hosted aerials on sync. So you may see one of those that comes in. Selectability should be turned off, hopefully, when I create those. I'm normally the one that creates those. So hopefully I remember to do that. The other thing that is kind of like a good practice, not maybe something that's so much the save settings a layer, it is saved there, is setting up your long labels. So we're going to our landmarks. Nope, bus stops. They're up here, up under base map. So if we go into our bus stops here and we go to our layer format, you're going to see right now the long label is just ID. So if we go to our index, go to our bus stops, you can see we have ID and location. If we do a locate all, just to kind of like see where all these are at, And on this left side, if we wanted to zoom to one of these, unless we know what the ID number is, we wouldn't know which one we're zooming in on other than based on the ID number. If we set up a long label to include, I'm just going to do a dash just for looks to location. So that'll be that field up there. And you could actually add extra text. So you could put like the stops or something like that in here also if you wanted. Not normally something I do, but that is something you can do if you want to add some additional information in there that's going to show up on all of them. So I hit OK and close. So let me do a redraw. Do an index, bus stops. Now if we do a locate all, you'll see it actually has each location. So you can see like there's the Walmart, there's the Waffle House, there's a Dollar General, and you can actually then click on one of these. So like let's click on the Waffle House, which is out here. You click on that, zooms you into the bus stop at the Waffle House. The nice thing is for the long labels is that is also what shows up here. So that's your current feature listing. If we go back and let's take off the location, do a file save, and we do a drop down here. Oh, sorry. Let me just click off and click back. You'll see that our current feature just shows one. So that's where it's important to set up your long label whenever you create a new layer. Hopefully, any layers that we've helped you create will go through a lot of this step. But if you create a new layer yourself, it's good to set this up to have something here that's useful because your current feature will be filled in more, your locate all will be filled in more, but also, let me go and type this in. If you click on, like whenever we click right here, and we see this, that's what this is. The ABC daycare and the daycare layer. That ABC daycare is set up in the long label because there's only one feature in the daycare. That's all we're going to see there. But that's where the parcel number you can see is just the parcel number. You could have the parcel name, you could have the owner name, you could do a lot of different things in your long label to make it so that whenever you click things or like we double click here, that's what's going to show up here. So setting up the long labels is an important step. It helps making the map a little easier to use, helps things a little more spelled out, plain English. It's kind of the thing we like to make sure everything's easy to use that way. So one thing you can do if you are like, let's go back into our bus stops just because it's locked. The field lengths. So I talked about this a little bit in the previous section. But the ID, it's only going to be 2 characters long. You don't really need 36 characters. It doesn't really hurt a lot with small layers, but this does eat into the size of the actual file. If you have a big layer like the parcels, which let's look at now, you'll see there's lots of fields here and there's different fields. And a good example is like the legal description. That's only 80 on here. This Cone County, they have their legal description like split into 2 pieces. And I don't know if 80 is quite long enough, but it's probably close. But sometimes that legal description could be over 200 or 300 characters long. You may need to expand that to be able to fill that in and have it all fill in. But you also don't want it to be 200 or 300 characters long on the map number. That is only maybe 2 or 3 characters long. Because if you had everything set to 200, you would actually run out of space in the file. There is like an actual maximum of how many characters can be in the file. If you wanted to know how many fields, like kind of like a list of fields and how long and different things, you can hit this diagnostic information. And, oh, I don't have a ports folder set up. Oh, you know what? It's probably open in the wrong folder. Just open it up in Notepad. So this is the diagnostic report. It'll open up in Notepad normally. And this list, you can actually see there's more information up here. A lot of this stuff is about but it'll tell you like this is the projection, the layers in, the different scaling factor and other information about the projection information, the file format, tell you some of that information. Most of that I don't hardly ever use. I mostly use this field usage area. This will show the map field, what kind of type it is, which most of this is going to be the same. Some of these, like that 04 is a yes, no field, and this private records is a yes, no. I just know what those fields are. It doesn't really tell you what the type is, but you can just be able to look that up, figuring it out. Mostly what I use this for is the max length and the used length. So if we scroll down here and look at our legal, was a good example. We have 81 available, but we're only using 68. So we could actually trim that down to save some space on the file. This isn't something that most editors or people are going to be needing to do. What I normally a lot of times use this for is whenever I look at these and I see that this like pin grantor is 51 and the length used is 50, that means I'm going to run out of space if there's anything longer. And that's what I would do a lot of times use this is look at what I'm using and say, well, I need to expand that a little longer because I don't want to run out of space while I'm editing. But that's something you can actually use to get some information about your layer if you're curious on those lengths and try to trim those down. That's something I do a lot of times whenever I do an import on a shapefile is I'll run that report and then trim things down just to make the layer as small and compact as possible. The other thing I will do as kind of a good best practice is this isn't something you want to do like all the time because there may be data in there that is actually relevant. But if you had some deleted data, and was it water meters? One of these I deleted something one time. But it's a good idea to, if you're trying to trim down a layer, try to simplify it, but also just to kind of clean up all of the extraneous accidentally deleted files or there's duplicates, that there's like one that's actually placed on the map, one that's a duplicate that's in the database, but not actually placed on the map, is you can do a, actually, we can just lock like the parcels is fine. We can do a purge deleted records from layer. So that will, anything that was deleted with the delete tool, this tool here will get that out of the index. Like I say, it's not something you want to do like all the time. That isn't really necessary. But if you've been working on a layer, doing a lot of cleanup, and you're like, hey, this is like exactly the way I want it. I'm ready to publish this to everybody. This is a good step just to get rid of any of those extra extraneous data. It helps compact the layer, makes it smaller, so that will make it sync faster up and down. That's the other nice thing about that. That's what some of these best practices, it's just nice to do these to make the end user have the fastest possible map. So any questions on any of these best use ideas? I know I've kind of zipped through there. Try not to talk too fast, but had a lot to cover.
No questions as of right now.
Okay, so let's move on to our feature form. This is the kind of the fun thing that you can do with things. So I'm going to pull up. I think I was actually thinking about modifying like one of these and one of these. So let's pull up our daycare first. So right now we have our 3 links up here at the top for our daycare, and then we have a feature name. So let's add a couple more features or a couple fields. So daycare. We're going to add maybe like a contact name. Contact number. Address field. And then let's add a maybe like an emergency contact. Spell that right? So emergency contact. So let's say you've added those fields. We're got to do a file save, redraw. Sometimes the map won't let you select something you just modified, so you got to do that. So we'll do the contact name, John Smith, contact number, and address. I think that's 504 North Chasen Street. And then emergency contact Let's give it another phone number. So this is the order that they came in automatically whenever we've like added these fields, and you can rearrange them. So I was going to show, so like, let's do a file save. If we click here, so that's the order they show up over here. And this is the order they show up in the field. If you want to rearrange the order, you can come into your layer settings, layer format. And let's say we want to move the emergency contact right up to the top, even above the feature name. So we can do that and hit OK. And close. Let's do a redraw. And if we click on our daycare, now the links are always going to be at the top, just so you know. And then the emergency contact shows up there. Then the feature name, contact number, and address. But if we open up the field, you'll see the emergency contact moved up here automatically for us because we haven't done any modifying of this. But if we've already modified this field, or we wanted to modify it further to put things in different orders or different locations, we can hit Modify Form Layout. And a lot of times what I'll do, the first thing I'll do is I'll maybe make this a little bigger to give me a little more room to work. And then let's say I want to put feature name over here. I want to put the contact name under there and the contact number next to it. And I want to put the address, maybe just send it here. And you can see up here, it'll show you where those links are going to show up, just so you can like visually reference that. So we can right click and finish. So that was a right click in that gray area there and finish. And these other ones, I just click and drag. I just click and drag to where I want them. So finish, apply these changes. Yes. So let's do a redraw so I can click on it again. And now you can see I've rearranged that form. So you can rearrange and make things go in different columns, different lineups. So one thing you can do is I want to make these line up a little bit nicer. So I'm going to make this a little wider. If you hold Shift, you can click on two things. Then you can right click on the actual item and align, and you can align the left edges, right edges, top or bottom. So I'm going to do the right edges just to show it moving a larger area. And you'll see that it moved over and it lined those up. So I might do the same thing here. Align, and we'll do right edges again. And then this one, I don't really have anything to line it up, so I'll just line it up to this one too. Align edges. So that just moves it over there and aligns it. So you'll see how these aren't stacked very, very nice, and you wanted to maybe like even them up. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll move it up close to where I think it looks pretty good, and then you can select all three of them, and then align, and then you can do equal horizontal or vertical spacing. So we're going to do vertical spacing here, and that just kind of like evens out the spacing between those three, makes it look a little nicer. And again, if you wanted to move the order, like let's say you wanted to put the address first, you can just move the one out of the way, move these in. I'm just kind of haphazardly setting them up. I'm going to select them, do line right, and then align vertical. And that will set those up. Luckily, those kind of snapped into place already. Didn't really move a lot, but you can kind of do those kind of things. If you want to align these ones to the left, I'll show you what that looks like. So you'll see it lines up the box, not the extra little label that labels the field. Other thing you can do is you can move where that label shows up. So you can hit modify here. So the alignment left of field, you can go no label if you want to get rid of it completely. Sometimes you'll use that because I'll show in a second how you can add additional text boxes, and you might want a different type of text box instead of the built-in. You can go right of field, or let's do above field just to show you how that looks. So that one's above. I'm going to move this down a little bit. Modify and do this one above and OK. So now let's do finished and yes. Let's do a file save, redraw. I'm doing an Alt S and an Alt R on my keyboard if you want to know the shortcut I'm using. I use sometimes, but now you can see these are, the descriptions on the left, and now it's above. So you can play with that to make your form look nicer. The main reason I like to be able to like change this around is to get things in the order that I want to like see them. Whenever I pull it up, I'm like, first thing I want to see is emergency contact, then the address, then the contact name, and then the normal contact number could be over there. I could have put that below. You can move that things around. But moving these does not change this order on the left side. And that's just so for your knowledge, but also the only way to change that is in the layer settings under the that other area. That changes that order here. So you can move these around wherever you want. One thing to know is that this will still tab in the order. So you'll see how it jumps around. So like if we start here again, emergency contact, and I hit tab once, it's going to go to feature name. I hit tab again, it's going to go to contact name. So it's going to go down in this order. So you'll sometimes find one like your address layers. The way the address layer is ordered in our map to make the searching and some of the other backend features work has to be ordered in kind of a non-standard, like it messes with my brain when I read it, way. And so whenever you hit tab, that is why it jumps around, because it's going down the layer list, the feature list order that's set up there. So if that annoys you, you may want to move this address farther down because it's actually the bottom. So you might want it lower just so that it doesn't jump around. Some people that bothers, some people it doesn't. Just wanted to point out that it's kind of a gotcha on that. Another thing you can do with the layout is you can add text box or buttons. So let's add a text box just to show that. So text, I'm going to make this daycare name. And okay. And you'll see it starts out pretty small. I'm actually going to turn off the label on this daycare, the feature name one. I'm going to put this right above here. And this is where it takes a little trial and error to get this to work out exactly what you want. But the width and height is what you have to change here to set that box to be a little bigger. And then you can also change the size. So we're going to go to large. And height, let's go to, I think, 30 and 100. And I'm going to just make that a little bigger. That may not be quite big enough, but we will try it. So hit finished, and yes. Let's do a redraw and save. And one thing if you want to pull up the feature, if you click on here with this gray bar, it'll actually pull up the form. So if you have the, like if you clicked on a feature over here, you clicked on that and you want to pull up the form, instead of having to double click on the map again, you can click this gray bar and it'll pull that up. So it's another quick way to get to the feature form to do some editing or to look at the day. So you can see my daycare isn't quite long enough. So we're going to do a modify form layout. And click on this guy and modify. And let's increase that to 500. And it might be a little too long for our sheet. So we'll make our page a little wider. And sometimes it will want to like scroll up a little too much. A lot of times I'll expand it just a little bit when I'm in here messing around, and it'll kind of like crop down to the space necessary. So nothing wrong with doing a little adjusting. Daycare, pull it up, and then now we can have daycare name, and that's where we can have a bigger label there than just the small labels that pop up. You could also have like instructions. You could have like, fill this in, or don't forget this. You could have little notes, whatever you want to do to add some labeling or any other text. Oh, do the opposite. So modify form layout. So now let's add a button. So button text can be public hi, and then we can have run, pop up. So this is going to be a little button, and it's going to pop up a little hi to just say hi to you. So we can click that. Back to our daycare, hop it up, maybe pop up hi. So we click that, and then maybe it's pop up window. I forget the command, but you could have a little something pop up. This is basically to run a command from inside the form. So this could be the same thing for our floor plans on and off. if we go grab that link, actually, we can do it from here. We grab the script. Turn that on, close, do the floor plans off, and modify form, change a button. So our command's going to be visibility on, and this can now say floor. Okay, so let's save that. Save raw. Go back to it here. Oh, see, I didn't expand my thing, so I have to scroll a little bit. I'll show you how to fix that. Being at floor plan on. And because the map, I don't have that redraw, and normally you'd have to do a script or something to really make it work well. That's something we can help you set up. I'll just do a scroll on the map to show the floor plan turns on. So buttons can be used. You could link to a website with a button. You could run a command. You could do things like turning the features on and off. Those kind of things if you wanted to have a button in here to do something instead of the links. So instead of the links up here, you can put this button anywhere you want on the form. So let's go back to modify. I'm gonna go ahead and thing I didn't do is a lot of times I'll just scroll this down, make it a little bigger. It'll automatically crop it up to take up any space that's not needed. So there's floor plans. I can move this wherever I want. So I could put it way over here, put it up here. You can do the same thing with add hyperlink. So we can do our text. Let's just put WTH website and then run. And okay. So that's going to put our WTH website. It's the same thing as the text and everything. It just kind of defaults to a small. You can go modify. We can make this a little wider. Let's make it 70 wide. And then let's say I wanted that right there. So you could have the website for the daycare next to their contact, information. You could have a section. You could even do an add text to contact phone. And put that down here. Then you could put the contact number. Let's assume that's the contact website and the contact name. You can put that down there. And that allows you to just kind of place things where you want on the form to make it easier to use. So let's hit yes. Another redraw, open up our form. So now you can see our contact info, contact number, WTH website, which is just linked to our site, and then contact name. And then our button still up there. So that's some of the stuff you can do with feature forms. If you wanted to get rid of one of these things, you've added something. Keep hitting the wrong one. Modify form. So let's say we don't want this link anymore. We can right click, just hit delete. And it's going to be like, hey, are you sure? Yes. If you try to delete one of these, it's going to say, are you want sure? And then it's going to say data fields cannot be deleted. All other control types were deleted. So it won't let you delete a field that's actually that's actually part of the layer. But like this contact info that I created, we can delete it. And height of that box, that's just how it displays in the map. Everything. So if you made this height like, let's make it 70, and only made this 250. And I'm just going to bring it down just to make room for it so I can pick it up. And finished. And then yes. Should show. So you can see how even though the box is bigger, it didn't change the name, the size of the text, and it's just got that big gap now. that is showing there. So, any questions so far, Leslie?
There's a couple. So with these changes that we are making to the feature fields forms here, are these changes going to be specific to this particular user, or does it change it for everyone when accessing this information on their map?
So this is saved in the layer. So whatever you make here is going to show for everybody's map automatically. So if you add a extra label or a link or anything like that, all of that is saved in the layer. It's synced through sync, and the people on the other end will see this.
So really, the people who own the layer should be the ones making these modifications,
Yeah.
not just everyone.
Yes. Yeah. You would have to own the layer for this setting to save, basically, because as soon as you sync, it'll override it and you'll lose that, most likely. So
And we do have some. Oh, go ahead.
Basically, a lot of the stuff I'm trying to go over are things that just the person who owns the layer would want to do. I mean, most of the setup is done by the editor who owns the layer, and then once people receive it, they're just going to use it as is. So yeah.
Sure. And then we do have some newer editors who are joining us. They might be new to their position as well. I think you briefly mentioned it. Can you show where to walk through moving up and down the fields in that left pane, should they decide that order isn't good as is?
Yeah, so that is under your layer settings, and then like we're just going to do a right click, but you can also hit more, then your layer format, and that's where these are ordered. So if you wanted the emergency contact moved down below the feature name, you can just hit this up down, move up and move down buttons here. If you want to remove one of these, like let's say we don't need the contact name, we don't want to have that anymore for whatever reason, we can just hit remove and it's gone. Now, the nice thing is if you make a mistake in here and you're like, oh no, just hit cancel and it didn't change anything. As soon as you hit OK, most of those settings, they're permanent. You're not getting it back. There's no undo for that. So it's better to do a cancel and then redo some work than to completely mess things up. One thing on these fields, let's say I change this from address to property address. And let's say I change contact name to director. So we've got two fields. We've changed the name. It doesn't matter what order we change them in. That won't prompt this next window. But when I hit OK here, I didn't prompt me. Oh, it's because I didn't remove anything. Sorry. If I were to remove something, that's what. Let's remove the directory. So let's remove that. You're going to get this, or if you add a lot of fields, you're going to get this pop up here, this field mapping setup. It's basically saying, hey, you've removed. So there's the warning. Features records are about to be moved or copied from source location to destination location. So it's basically telling us that the source fields and the destination fields don't match anymore. So the emergency contact, that still exists. The feature name, that still exists. The director name, that doesn't exist. So right now, if I just hit OK, it's not going to go anywhere. It's not, it just, the data's lost. If we hit cancel though, then it'll basically tell us, hey, that nothing changed. We come back in here to the daycare layer. You'll see the director name's still there. So if you accidentally remove something, you hit OK, and it's going to give you like this one last chance to like not lose that data. Or you maybe need to move it to another field because maybe I've added another field that is just contact name. And I want to remove director name. Instead of renaming it for whatever reason, I added a new one. I hit OK. Now it's like, hey, line these up for me. So emergency contact's going to be lined up. Feature name. Director name doesn't go anywhere. So I'm going to put that as contact name. And then contact number and property address. So now those will move those fields. It's like the fun worksheets you used to do in school where you had to line up the two lists. So it's kind of fun. Okay. Any other questions, Leslie?
We don't have any more in the Q&A. Again, we've got the mics open. If anybody should have any questions they'd like to ask in person, feel free to unmute yourself. I
While
thought,
we're waiting, I'll go ahead and show on the daycare layer that I've been playing with here. There's also, if you do your modify form layout, there's the option to do tabs. And some of our users, I'm sure, have like an NG911 layer. A lot of times whenever we deliver those, they have tabs. But maybe you have a layer that you want to do two tabs so that whenever they open up the form, they have the basic information, and then the second tab maybe has additional information that maybe they don't need every day, but it is just helpful to have. So if we right click and hit tabs, we can go new tab, and we're going to call this general. So this is now the general tab. So that's just the, and you could name it anything. I'm just giving it a generic name. Now let's go tabs and new tab, and let's do additional info. And okay. So we have our general tab, which just has the everything that's on the layer already. Then additional info right now is empty. So let's say we wanted to move the contact name, and we're going to go right click, we're going to right click on the thing, tabs, and then we're going to say we want to move selection to a different tab. So I realize that's real low at the bottom there. We're going to move that to additional info. And then I'm going to move their contact number also over there. So tabs, move selected to the additional info. And then why don't we fix this so then it maybe looks a little normal. So line those things up, and then we go back to our additional info. We'll see these came in, and maybe we want to just put these up here. Contact name, contact number. Maybe we want to change the back to the left. So those are lined up there. So now let's hit finished so we can see our changes here. So let's say someone is wanting to contact this place. They pull up the form. The left side here is going to show those tabs with the little plus and minus here. So it'll only show one or the other, just to kind of make that form not so big whenever you're looking at two. It's a lot of times used for something like address layer where you have a whole bunch of extra fields, and that can help you be able to make it a little more manageable. But if we open up our field, we'll have our general, so we can have our daycare name, emergency contact, and property address. That's maybe the data that dispatch needs right away, right now, to be able to do something. If the additional info is maybe you just need to know who the director is and their contact number. So you can hide that behind this. It's not really hidden, but you can just move that into an additional tab to make it so then this field can just be just the basic information they need to be able to do something right away. Any questions come in while I was talking there, Leslie?
we did have one earlier. It's not on the topic of the feature form, but when you were placing the points earlier for those utilities for valves and whatnot, we had a question about, customizing those. Can you remind, since we might still have some new editors in here, where they can go to customize how those logos look?
So like the symbols.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like my water meters, I have that little M, and then my valves, let me move that back up here. It's got the little kind of bow tie shape. Those are things that are out on our web library. There, I'll show you. There's a couple places to get things. Let's do our water line. Well, that's not really a feature point. Let's do our hydrants. So you can do a browse local libraries, and this is where you'll find some built-in different things in the map that have different features. I don't have a whole lot here because I reinstalled my map before the training, just so my map would be nice and clean and simple. But there's lots of different features normally here. We can probably go find one in my backup. So like this is one that's kind of a generic one that a lot of people have on their map. Just lots of different symbols here to do different things. But there's also the web library, which most of the time is more helpful. And that's where the meter and valve little icons we're using. So let's look at the meter one. So we'll browse web library. We'll scroll down here to our water utilities. And then we are looking at meters. So let's go to the meter. And then I've made a couple different options. So you can have a white background, blue outline, a WM if you want to be water meter. So you want to be able to differentiate between water meters and a some other type of meter that you maybe still want blue, but you want to be able to see the differences there. And then I've got multiple sizes here. So you can go up to like this 28 pixel, makes it pretty big. So you can see how big those are. Normally I like the kind of like 16 to 20 range. So let's scroll back down to our water utilities, back into our meter. So I think I was using 16 or 20 before. I made a little 12 that's really small if you were just wanting to try to, maximize the size of them. Yeah, it looks like I was probably using a 20 before. So you can kind of play with the different sizes of those. If you need a icon and you don't have the ability to make it, reach out to us. We can help you build out little symbols for anything. Same thing, the valves are in that web library also. And you can use almost anything. Like if you find a picture online and you want to use, just like size it down to that 20 pixel size, and you can use that. Normally, whenever I try to create these, I try to make them like two color, try to pretty simple, but you can use basically anything. Anything else, Leslie? Anything else come in?
That was it for questions, unless you have
Okay.
anything else you'd like to cover.
I think that's everything. I feel like we've covered a lot today. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions on any of these specific things or anything else.
Yep. Thank you, Corey, for going over that valuable information to help our users become more familiar with features WTH has to offer within our Think GIS map. Just a friendly reminder to watch for that email with the survey link and the recording of what we learned here in today's session. Any input and feedback is greatly appreciated. You can also review the recording on our website by navigating back to the registration page where it will soon be posted. If for some reason after some time your company's firewall doesn't seem to allow the email to come through, feel free to reach out to a WTH staff member and we'll send you the links directly. Thank you for joining us today in our second extended webinar session. We hope you've learned from and enjoyed the topics we've discussed here today and are hopeful to see you attend future sessions. Thank you from your friends here at WTH Technology.